Okay, so in the last video where we left off, we had gotten to a place where we were able to make a thumbnail gallery. It doesn't have a Lightbox thing attached to it yet, but in this one, what we're going to do is go ahead and figure out how to get Lightbox working with this. So I'm going to recommend at this point that you save your file as test03. Right now we're working with test02. So let's go ahead and save as file, save as, and then we'll do inside of this display images or whatever you called it folder, we're going to save it as test03.php. Okay, and I'm going to close test02, and now you've got another place that you can go back to in case you feel like you mess anything up irrevocably. Okay, always have trouble with that word. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. If you go down to the bottom where we say generate thumbnail gallery, what we need to do is figure out how to incorporate some sort of Lightbox feature in here. Now, what I'm going to do is show you a resource. There are lots of different ones that you could use, but I'm going to show you one that's based in Jquery, and that is if you do a quick search on Google or whatever your favorite search engine is, you're going to find something, you're going to do a search for the word Lightbox, and then you're going to choose Lightbox, and then you're going to choose the one that goes to Lightbox2. All right, and then the website looks like this. And you're going to go ahead and download. You could view on GitHub if you understand how to work with GitHub. But here's what is going to end up happening. It gives you an option to do individual images or a set of images, and that's what we're going to look at is sets of images because, you know, we have our galleries, okay? And then down below, he tells you exactly what you need to do to get started. So first of all, he's going to tell you to go ahead and unload or download the file, which you do here. I've already downloaded it, okay, and I'll show you where it's downloaded in just a second. And it's going to tell you to go and look into the examples folder. So let's take a quick look there. So I downloaded it, and where I downloaded it was not directly into, you'll notice it wasn't directly into the display images function folder that my root level directory. I just downloaded it into my dev folder. And the reason I don't want you to stick it inside of your actual working folder is because I don't, you know, a lot of times students will put stuff into their folders and then they'll just leave it there. And I don't want you to do that. I only want you to take out what you need, and I want you to put what you need inside that folder. So what I'm going to show you how to do then is, this is my zipped file that I just downloaded, and this is the unzipped version where it says Lightbox2 master. And then if you follow his instructions, you'll see that there is an examples folder here. Okay, well, that has an index file that basically looks very much like what we have up here. It's got this information, okay? Now, what you need to do is you need to go down to where it says SRC, and this is, again, this is the downloaded Lightbox2 master folder that's been unzipped. And you're going to look in the source folder, and then what you can do is see where it says JS, it has his Lightbox JavaScript file, and then images, this has his downloading images, and then, you know, like for previous next, and then while it's downloading, it's a loading GIF, and then the CSS file. So I want you to take all three of these files, or these folders, I should say, okay, and I want you to copy them. Well, there we go, copy 3 items, sorry. Okay, and I want you to go then into your root level directory. Mine's called displayImages, and this is where I want you to paste them. Okay, so now what we've got is we have a folder called CSS. It has Lightbox CSS in it. We have galleries, excuse me, that was ours. We have images, and it has these, like, you know, special files, okay? And then we have the JavaScript folder. That's the Lightbox.js. Okay, so now we've got those from his example, all right? Now, the other thing that is necessary that you have to have before you can run this is that you have to have the original Jquery library because this is built in Jquery. So before we can even start doing all of this stuff that he tells us to do, okay, we need to go over here to jquery.com in a new window. All right, and when you get there, you're going to see a big button that says download Jquery. You're going to click on that. It takes you to another page. And it gives you some options. You can either download the compressed version. That's referred to as the production version, where basically it's a bunch of stuff run together with no line breaks. And it makes it more efficient. The development version actually has line breaks, so you can kind of see what's going on a little bit better. But we're never ever going to make changes to the development Jquery file, so we might as well just download the production one that's going to be faster. So, and we're going to use Jquery 1 point whatever, because we would like for it to work with old versions of Internet Explorer, okay? Until the time comes where we really decide that we're never going to support Internet Explorer 8 again, let's just keep working with 1 point whatever. So we're going to download this production version, and the place that I'm going to put it, let's go to my htdocs, and I'm going to find my dev folder, and then I'm going to find the folder I'm working in, my displayImages function folder, and then I'm going to go into that JS folder that I just created, and I'm going to download it here. And the file name is jquery-1.11.3.min.js, and I'm going to download that. Okay, so now the thing that you need to realize, sometimes when you download stuff like that straight from the internet, one of the things that sometimes happens is that the permissions will get sort of messed up. So you need to make sure that your permissions on the file are correct. So let's just double check that really fast. And that's something that it drives students crazy, is because they're doing everything right and their JavaScript's not working, and for whatever reason, don't know why, for whatever reason, the permissions are not set so that you can actually have the whole rest of the world read the file. So I'm going to right click. I'm on a Mac, and I can do get info. And you will see, in fact, that file that we just downloaded, it says that everyone has no access. Well, we want everyone to be able to read this file. So we need to tell it to read only. And we might as well make sure that that's going to be true of this Lightbox.js as well. Okay. Now, on a Windows computer, you can look at the properties, and you can look at the permissions and sharing. Or the other thing you can do is, like say in FileZilla, you can look at it there, and you can right-click and look at the permissions. And the thing is if you upload something that tells everyone that everyone has no permission to access, then it's not going to work on the server either. And but you can always change it on the server. So we're going to double check real quick and make sure that Lightbox is okay. So we'll do get info. And everybody can read that. And if you also wanted to double check, the other thing you could do is on your JS folder, you could check the permissions on that as well. And then it looks like everyone can read. Now, if you know that in a folder, say like an images folder or something, you know that you want everybody to be able to read, you can also, on a Mac, you can't do this on Windows, but on a Mac you can go and click this, and you would have to have administrator privileges to do this. But what you can do is you can click on this little gear, and you can say to apply all of these permissions to the enclosed items, and it will do them. It'll put those permissions on everything that's inside of there recursively all the way down to the last file or folder. So that's another option that you can do. And I will also show you, once we upload stuff, how you can adjust that as well. Okay, so now that we have that detail worked out, even if you can't figure out how to do this on your computer, one of the things you can do is you can upload it to the server, to your test area, and you can change it through FileZilla by right-clicking in the lower right quadrant of your screen, and you can right-click on the folder or the file, and you can choose to look at the permissions, and you can change the permissions. And the standard permissions would be 755 on a folder, and then you can recurse it down and change it. Okay, so now that we've got that sort of issue resolved or worked out, We've got all of our Jquery loaded. Now if we go back to our Lightbox, we need to read what we're supposed to do with it. And he tells you right off the bat that you need to go ahead and include the link to that style sheet. Okay, and it says here path to lightbox.css. So you're going to have to change where it says path to Lightbox. All right, you're going to have to put the actual path, and then also the path to the Jquery or JavaScript. Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump over in Dreamweaver, and instead of putting it at the very top like he says, I'm actually just going to include it right before the gallery, because I don't necessarily want to be loading all of that JavaScript unless I have to. I don't necessarily want to load the JavaScript at the top of the page whenever maybe I don't even have, for instance, I don't even have a Lightbox on the page. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to load it right before it actually fires. And so right before I announce the gallery, I'm going to come up here and I'll put the link to the CSS. And in this case, my path to lightbox.css is css/lightbox. Okay. And then the other thing he wants you to do is make a reference to the lightbox.js file as well. Now, there are a couple of things about that. First of all, we have to change this path, and that would be js.lightbox. The other thing is that before we load JavaScript for the Lightbox file, we have to actually load the Jquery library. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change this so that it is js/, and then we're going to find the file name. Let's see if we can go back. Okay, so here it is, and this the name of that file is, I'm just going to copy it real quick, like this, and we'll come back over here. I'm going to paste the name of that file in there, and make sure you don't do something like .min.js.js. That's another common mistake that people have when they copy file names like that. All right, and so the next thing, now that we've got our Jquery file loaded, which is absolutely mandatory that you load that first, and then we've got our JS Lightbox loaded next, and then and we also have our Lightbox CSS loaded here. The next thing that we want to do is take a look at his documentation site, and he explains how you can make sure this thing is going to work. And I'm just skipping over this whole number 4 and 5 section. Be aware that this stuff I'm skipping because we're going to use the full Jquery library, so don't worry about this. We've already taken care of that. So we're going to jump down to the place where we initialize the HTML. And he explains here what you have to do to initialize it. And this is on a single image. So we're not doing single images, we're going to do sets of images. So we're going to look at this part down here. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to take this attribute of data-lightbox, and in his example it says, equals road trip for the value. What we're going to do is we're going to copy this, and then we're going to jump over here into our file, and we're going to find where we have our ahref and we have a title. Okay, and then the next thing that we're going to do here is space, and we're going to put data. Let's make sure that, data-lightbox equals, and then right now it says road trip. Instead of saying road trip here, what you really would want to do is actually put like maybe the name of the gallery. And the best way of dealing with that, honestly, is to look at up here in our variable paths. You can see you could choose target gallery, right? Because it's our responsive design gallery. So I'm going to copy that and come down here, and this is where I could put in PHP, and we can echo that out, okay, so that we have a target gallery now. Now let's do a quick test. All right, let's go back to our page, and don't forget, now we're testing not O2 any longer but O3 instead. And then if I click on this, I should get my Lightbox with my images for next and previous popping up, okay? And if you look down here, you see that it's got the title, and it tells me it's image 3 of 5, okay? So now our Lightbox is actually working.